Hello! In this video I'm going to show you how to install and set up Xdebug and VS Code in about 5 minutes. I start with a clean install of Ubuntu 21.10. Most of the things that we'll be doing is on the command line, so let's start a terminal window. First we will install Apache and PHP. To check that PHP is installed, we can run php-v. As you can see, we have installed PHP 8.08. Let's also check this for going through the web server. For that we first start Firefox. Let's try connecting to localhost. And we get our default Apache 2 page. It mentions the path or directory here in which we can put our files. I will now add a PHP info file to show that PHP works. When trying to save it, it says I can't write it because apparently the permissions are not good enough. So we'll do this as root, which is not really what you should do. We'll put Firefox to the newly created file. And you'll see that PHP 8 is loaded here as well. Our next step now is to install Xdebug. We do that again on the command line. By running sudo apt install php-xdebug. On the command line we can verify that Xdebug is installed with php-v. As you can see here, Xdebug is loaded. We also need to restart Apache so that it picks up the new configuration. We reload our browser to verify this. You can now see next to the Zend Engine logo that Xdebug is installed here as well. Xdebug tree has its own information page, which only includes information that pertains to Xdebug. Let us exchange the PHP info call for Xdebug info. And reload the page in the browser again. It will tell you in the top which modes are enabled. In this case, the default is development aids, which is currently enabled. We need to also activate the step debugger. In the settings below you can see which file you need to edit to change Xdebug settings. In this case it's the last one here because X is at the end of the alphabet. We'll edit this file and add the lines that we need to. Again we use sudo. The setting that we need to add is called xdebug.mode. This enables the step debugger with the debug keyword and keeps the pretty vardams and other features available as part of the develop mode. For more information on mode, see an earlier video. In our first attempt we want Xdebug to run for every request, so we need to add one more line here, which is Xdebug start with request equals yes. There are other ways to activate Xdebug as well, for which I can refer you to another video titled Xdebug 3 activation. Now we've changed the settings, we need to restart Apache again. We now re-request our page with our Xdebug info call in it, and we'll see that Xdebug attempted to connect to an IDE but could not, which makes sense as we have not installed it yet. The diagnostic log has a message in it here, which said could not connect to the debugging client, and it then tells you where it's tried to connect to. Which is an important thing to realize because Xdebug needs to make a connection to your IDE. We now need to install VS Code. We can do that by clicking Activities and then selecting Ubuntu Software. We then click the search handle and search for Visual Studio Code. It is the blue icon which I'll now click and install. It now asks for my password, which I enter. Now that it is installed, we start it so that we can install the PHP Debug plugin. I open the folder with our files in it. But if you remember, all the file permissions were wrong, so I'm going to change the permissions on the folder first. Or rather, on a subfolder. I first create our new directory. I then move the existing xdebug info file into it and give it a better name. Of course, I have to do that as root with sudo. And now change the permissions on the demo directory so that me as a user can write into this. This newly created directory I will now open in VS Studio Code. And click OK. I'll increase the font a little bit by pressing Ctrl+Shift+. We need to install the plugin, or they're also called extensions, by clicking the extensions icon. We can search here for PHP Debug. The extension that you want to install is the one by Felix Becker. Now that the extension is installed, we can configure the IDE for debugging. I click for that on the Run and Xdebug logo. It says to open a file which can be debugged or run. So let me open the Xdebug info file and click Run and Debug. Right now nothing happened because we did not set a breakpoint. You can set a breakpoint by clicking in the margin. I click Run and Debug again. And as you can see, VS Code stopped at the exact line in my code. Of course, debugging Xdebug info isn't very interesting, so let me create a small script with some more useful code in it. I first stop the debugging request by clicking stop, however, and go back to the Explorer. I now will create a new file by clicking the right icon, and let's call this script counter. In this script, I'm going to count from 1 to 100. I will now create a breakpoint again by clicking in the margin for line 3. Then select the Run and Debug tab and click Run and Debug. And as you can see, the script stops at line 3, where on the left hand side you can see all the variables and its values, also the superglobals, which include the cookies and environment variables and so on and so on. User-defined constant if there are any, and then in the call stack below you can see which functions have been called up to this point. Of course, there's none here, there's only the main script. By using the buttons in the top of the VS Code window, we can advance the script. The first one is continue, which will run until the next breakpoint or the end of the script. I will click it now so that we go for I equals 1. And you'll see that the variable updated here. There's also step over, which will step to the next line in the code unless a breakpoint is hit. There's step into, which will also step into function calls, and step out, which will step out of the function, or in this case, the script itself, because the script itself is also a function. However, breakpoints will still trigger. And here we have it, setting up PHP, Apache, and Xdebug with VS Code. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe.